Welcome to Crypto Talk Radio, the podcast for everyday investors like you. Visit us on the web at cryptotalkradio.net. And now, here's your host, Leister.
Thank you for that, Bailey, and welcome everybody out there in Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net. We are getting dangerously close to the election, where the country is going to change, either for the better or for the worse. And I have a saying. It doesn't matter who I choose to vote for, it matters who you choose to vote for. That's my saying. You heard it here first at cryptotalk.fm. I'm saying it really doesn't matter who I vote for. It matters who you vote for your own reasons. Mine is simply to make sure that first, that you vote. Second, that you vote with your brain, not with your heart. And I say that because I think a lot of people, I was watching the response from Whoopi Goldberg. I don't watch The View, but I just watched the clip. The response of Whoopi Goldberg to Trump's visit to Joe Rogan, where Joe Rogan was calling out, they're hugging you, they're kissing you, they're welcoming you, and Whoopi's basically saying, Barbara Walters at the time just was polite to every guest. And so I was trying my best to be respectful of her and not act like a jerk, but I'm doing, she was showing clips where she's side-eyeing and it's clear she didn't really like the guy from way back there. Part of the problem, though, is if we look at the span of why they don't like Donald Trump and then why they do like Kamala Harris. There was an interview, that segment on Sky News Australia, and they were talking about this one interview where Kamala was asked the question straight up. LGBTQ people want to hear that you're going to support healthcare. I'm paraphrasing, but you're going to support healthcare for them. And Kamala basically said, and I paraphrase, everybody's entitled. It's the law. Everybody's entitled to be treated fairly. Everybody's entitled to be treated respectfully. And it's what the law allows, and nobody should feel that. Which made me, in my mind, think about the separation that we had with Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. And the rebuttal at the time was that when you say all lives matter, you're dismissing that right now we're focused on Black Americans. Now, I'm not a supporter of Black Lives Matter because, as we know, it's a scam. The point is made, though, there was an outrage when somebody stated something as this global all lives matter. But when Kamala does not answer the question about this one segment of the people, it's just overlooked as, it's fine. Why? Shouldn't you be just as outraged that she's not willing to answer the question, which is a valid question to ask, and she's not willing to directly answer it like I think she should, because she once had said one way, and now she's being called up to just confirm it 100% and take a solid stance on it. The reason this is important, the whole system, the government system, is based on this narrative that we have to change our laws to accommodate more populations of people, which ends up diluting support for any one group. Dr. Umar Johnson talked about this with the Civil Rights Act and the fact that, yes, at one point it might have been catered to Black Americans, but then it was expanded. Affirmative action was expanded. Equal opportunity was expanded to where that's just how the government works. It's not a partisan situation. That's just how they work. They don't work to say, we got to create something for Asian American. We got to create something for Hispanic Americans. We got to create something for Black Americans. We got to create something for white Americans. They don't do that. Instead, they try to make these uniform rules and end up pissing everybody off in the process. That's where we are. So now when Kamala Harris, I just saw a flyer talking about, well, Kamala Harris, she's going to do all this for Black men because the former owner was a Black male. That's offensive. If I were a white American, I would be offended to even receive this type of a flyer, because you're making the impression that white Americans don't matter to you, Mexican Americans don't matter to you, Asian Americans don't matter to you. By the way, I'm living in a predominantly Asian American situation. So this is tone deafness when you send out these flyers that are racially driven. And I just want people to call it out for what it is, because we'll say one's racist, but Kamala's not, even though Kamala's the one making these charge statements. Obama's making the charge statements. Michelle's making the charge statements. Biden has made the charge statements, and we're not consistent. So I'm asking, get out and vote with your brain, not with your heart, because at the end of the day, it's a government issue. It's not going to change. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's a government situation. It's never going to go anywhere. It's all about the policies. And as long as it benefits you and your family, and ideally more people than just you, we're all going to be better off in the long term. And that's what I want. I want us to be in a better situation than we currently are. Because right now, I feel the economy is in a very bad, fragile state, and I want to see it better for everybody. It should not require making six figures to be comfortable. That's the point. And you might feel like it's not. Yes, it is. To be comfortable, to truly feel comfortable buying without having to depend on loans, you need six figures, and it shouldn't be that way. And I want to see that change. That's my personal opinion on how I feel. Let's chat some cryptocurrency now, folks. Coindesk.com, and we are going to zoom out to the month chart so I can take a brief victory lap. Not a great victory lap, but a brief victory lap, because unfortunately a lot of people around made some claims, and I didn't personally agree, but I was willing to sit back and see if I was going to catch this one. I made the statement that it didn't feel like we were going to hit the major run of the so-called, quote, October that we might expect. We did get a run on Bitcoin, and this was good for some people that were expecting at least something, but it was not the run that we wanted, and it did not breach its all-time high. Remember, the all-time high is 73 grand, 73 and a half. We hit about 72.9, so we got short of that number. It was almost there, though. It was almost there, and it went right back down quick, and what's happening is a bunch of leverage. There's a lot of leverage positions, high leverage positions, so it's heavily volatile. We knew this. We also knew that if the leverage was not successful in enticing some purchase traffic, some actual bull traffic, it wasn't going to sustain. If it was able to sustain it for a period of time to stay above that level, then we expected a run, and people estimated about the 80,000 mark. Is it possible it still has that? It's possible. I'm just saying that right now, it was very difficult to say that we were going to hit that peak in October, and here we are 2 days away from the end of the month. So we still got some time. I just felt we weren't quite ready yet, and possibly November maybe was a better target to see a major run. A low of 69.7. It did high peak 73, but it didn't last. It was a snap. It was not last at all. It hovered around 72.9, currently at 72.6-ish as I record this, trending upward. So we do expect it to go back up and hopefully hit the 73 mark and perhaps go on to bigger and better things. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants to see Bitcoin go on a run. The other reason I wasn't sold on a Bitcoin run is the price of Ethereum. Ethereum right now, 26.3, a high of 26.8, a low of 25.6. Ethereum isn't going anywhere. There was some news about Idiot Vitalik and him being attacked. And I did a coverage about the fact that some whales were dumping out of Ethereum because of all the dumps that the Idiot Vitalik was doing. He gave a message on social media, and he said something to the effect of, we're building for the future. It's essentially what he said, that there's a lot of stuff being built to increase compatibility and and that's great, but that's not what the investors really want to hear. What the investors want to hear is that you're doing something that's going to increase their bag, because Ethereum is half down from all-time high. So people want to see, what are you doing to pump this project? That's basically what they want to know. Part of the issue, though, is that if I'm right and enough of the whales dumped out of the project, it may never get back to that all-time high, no matter what happens with Bitcoin. If that's the case, and I can't say it is, but if that's the case, then that means a lot of money is expected to flow over to Bitcoin, where it might be sitting on the sidelines in stable coins, waiting to see which of them is going to have the run, and money would not flow back into Ethereum. BNB certainly did benefit. AVAX benefited a little bit. Solana benefited a little bit, but BNB and Bitcoin, they ran, and they ran really good. Doge ran really good. I was surprised at how much Doge ran up. I'm not surprised, but I am surprised, because Elon has not been one of those Doge ardent defenders. So I did not expect to see as much money flow into Doge as I did. And it may simply be that there's enough pairing with the Bitcoin that it benefited from the Bitcoin run. That tells me Doge has a very good opportunity to go even higher, possibly to surpass the dollar mark. That's going to be very huge for a lot of people that were sitting on it for 9 years or some odd. So I'm looking at it thinking, okay, this is good for people that are interested in these tokens. And I want to see people taking profits, but I understand that there are gamblers out there. I know there are people that just want to ride it till the wheels fall off. And I celebrate if you want to do that as well. I just think that it's a good practice to take profits, because these could completely crap out at any given time. Consensus. You may have heard the name Consensus. Consensus is associated with MetaMask. MetaMask at some point announced that they were going to willingly violate your privacy. That's what they said. There's a lot of people on YouTube who celebrate MetaMask, and developers encourage you to use MetaMask. And Leister at CryptoTalk.fm has said, don't use MetaMask. It's the worst wallet out there, largely because they say they're going to violate your privacy. Well, Consensus, which is the company that's behind MetaMask, they're cutting their workforce 20% because the Ethereum, it's just not running back up. It's not doing what they expected it to do, and they're having to, quote, restructure. They also talked about the lack of regulatory clarity from the SEC. There's too much that's holding back innovation. There's too much uncertainty, and we're not really sure what's going to happen to the future. Quote, even in the face of these challenges, our ecosystem is on the precipice of becoming a globally, systemically defining force, with Web3 native companies making great strides and more traditional companies leading into Web3, which is a fluffy answer of basically saying it's a shit show right now, but we're optimistic for the future, is basically what they're saying. Right now, they're going to focus on improving MetaMask user experience. I think that's a good idea. Enhancing multi-chain, I think that's a good idea. And add more offerings, including a MetaMask card. I think that's a bad idea, but it's their business. I can't tell them what to do with their business. So I'm going to remain critical about MetaMask and Consensus. I'm happy to see that they're at least acknowledging that they do need to do something. But what I want to see is a move away from that generic type of wallet where it's not a user-friendly experience. I want to see that we're doing more to entice newer investors into cryptocurrency than we currently are doing. I don't think we've done a good enough job, and I think we can do a better job than what I've at least seen my personal self. Enough of the news. I want to spend the remainder of the episode educational because I did commit. I committed to everybody. I wanted to make sure that I do more of the 101, the educational, the helpful, the beneficial, hopefully beneficial series. So this is the next iteration of that. And I'll probably do one additional of these, and then I'll get back to regular cadence. And every now and then I'll just interject these. So it occurred to me, I did great coverage on the Saitama on what I saw and the breakdown of what I saw and my thoughts. It's almost 5 hours of content. I have one more upload that's really answering questions that I received. I think it's good information for you just to learn how some of these shady actors act and the red flags to look for. But it occurred to me as I was doing that coverage that people may not understand the art of a Shiller. Let's start with a simple definition of a Shiller because you may not be able to recognize them. I'm sure you've interacted with at least one. A Shiller is a person who is compensated to pitch a product to you, or they're pitching a product to you that they bought into, presumably to dump on you, but maybe not necessarily. The point is, they're pitching you a product that they want you to get into. That's a Shiller. And they're fervent, they're adamant, they're excessive in a lot of cases. It's not like Da Vinci, for example, Da Vinci Jeremy. He talked about Pepe. He hasn't talked about it really hardly since. He talked about his waffles. He talks about it all the time, but he doesn't tell you excessive, all these things. He tells you about these different projects that he partners with and some that he's spinning up himself, but he's not excessive about it. He just kind of mentions it and then he goes on, does his own thing. When I say a Shiller, I'm talking about people that in some cases, their whole online presence is predicated on whatever project. You have some that they only existed because of Saitama, as an example. You have some that only existed because of SHIB. You have some that only existed because of Doge. You have some that only existed because of Floki, because of Kishu, or whatever project. That's where they started their online presence, and then they branched off into something else. But the point is, they started with a shill, an approach. Let's talk about shilling then. How do you know that you're being shilled to? If it's a project that you're being told about, and at some point they tell you to take a look at it, with the idea that you might buy into it, and they don't qualify things that would keep you safe, that's a shill. So for example, I'll give you a great example. I did a coverage about a lottery token some time ago. There was somebody who stopped by one of the live chats and said, I'm behind this lotto token. Will you take a look at it and do your coverage? And I took a look at it and did the coverage. And one thing I said near the end is you have to be careful about the laws and regulations around gambling because it might bite you. Other than that, take a look at it. That's a qualifier because I don't know if there's something that would be risky to you and I call it out for a potential risk, not knowing if it does or doesn't apply. Same with Libero. I said multiple times, I don't know if it's legit or not. I said right now it's doing what they told me. I don't see a problem with putting some money in it, but I qualified and said when they changed the bank structure, I said, don't put your stuff in the bank. It's a scam, straight up. But I always say, take a look at it, see if it makes sense, but FYI, because there's always issues with every project. There's not a single project out there that does not have issues. Hachi, which I've been talking about. I consider myself part of the community for. I've never told anybody to take a look at it. I've been doing nothing but warning people about the behavior of the token because I knew what was going to happen. I had people that didn't listen, and then now they're listening. Now they hear me. Now they hear what I was saying to be the truth, and they understand I was trying to help them out because it's easy. And now that I know that the bots, this is a revelation recent, now that I know that the bots are programmed to simply follow TradingView traffic, it's even easier. It means that you know exactly what to do with the token based on what the bots are going to do to it. I still would never advocate it because I know it's a garbage of old coin. I know there's nothing fundamental to it. I know it has some potential. There's always potential to make some profit, but I'm never going to tell you, no, you should get into this right now. If you don't have a bag, you're missing out. These kind of buzzwords that you've heard, that's what you're looking for from a Shiller. If they're telling you things like, if you don't have a bag, then X, Y, Z, and the other thing. If you're going to miss out, if these are calls to action, right? And it's psychological. They're psychologically telling you to get into the project because it's not looking out for you. It's looking out for the project. The project has to grow. In order to grow, you need more people buying into the project. They may not be wanting to dump on your head. It may not be them trying to maliciously take money from you. It may simply be them trying to promote the project and get it off the ground or move it in a different direction. I'm not advocating anybody get into a project unless you're comfortable with what it's proposing. And you do your research and do your due diligence and look behind the curtain and make sure that things that are risks, you call them out. We know pretty much every project that has a telescam channel is going to at some point block legit questions because a lot of them are trying to minimize what they consider FUD. It's not FUD. FUD is false information designed to harm a thing. If you're just asking a legitimate question about the project, that is not FUD. They call it FUD. So what they're trying to do is keep nothing but positivity in the project. Excessive positivity in a project does nothing but what? Increases risk. Why does it increase risk? Because if everybody's smiling, you're not going to recognize that person that's about to shoot you. You like how I did this? Understand that you always should have a diverse set of response in any sort of forum. You should always have diverse opinions. You should always have pros and cons. You should welcome criticism. You should welcome the smoke, because if you don't welcome the smoke, it looks shady as hell. That's the truth. Every project that I've seen where they've welcomed the smoke is still around. Every single project that is blocked and hid and deleted and done everything they can to suppress valid questions and complaints has crapped or is about to. That's just the way it works. So when I call out Shillers, I'm calling them out not because they are or are not trying to personally take your money. I call them out because the vast majority of them do not qualify what they're saying with the negatives about the projects that they shill. It's not fair. It's not accurate to say this is going up to the moon, this is and not call out the negatives that are obvious negatives. There are countless where they do not call out issues in the white paper. I'll hear inconsistency in treatment about taxes. This project over here does not have taxes, and they say, yep, that's great. I don't like taxes. This project over here that they're shilling does have taxes, and they're saying, yeah, well, they got to pay for it. No. You got to be consistent and say, they paid me to provide. I had one additional person I saw on YouTube, and I like what he said. He said, you're paying for me to cover you, not to support you. That's what I want. They're paying for coverage and exposure, not support. There's a line. The Shiller in question has to draw that line. They have to be the one ethically bound to saying, I am going to take your money for coverage. I will talk about you how I see fit. I will say what I choose. That's the agreement. That's not what they do. What they do is they receive some sort of bullet list or script or something else that this project wants them to cover and talk about. And then they only talk about the positives of the project. They don't talk about the negatives of the project. That's doing you a disservice. So when you hear me say, I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a podcaster, it's because I'm not a YouTuber. I don't want to be classified in that category because there's nothing in my coverage that's anywhere close to the way they approach it because I find it disgusting. I want people who listen to me to get both sides of the story. Anybody that came to my show from Libero, that rhymes, understands. No, he's right on the field. He's right down the middle. He's told us about the risks. He's told us about the positives and the negatives. He called them out when they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And everything he said was the truth, and it all came true. And we saw what happened when they moved over to this Key of Life failure. Everything he said was right down the line. And at no point did I heavily promote him. And in fact, I called him out for not wanting to speak to the population. That's what you should want for every last one of these that have way more followers than I ever would ever have. That's what it is. If you have the platform, if you've got the stage, you should be using it to do the right thing. A Shiller is not doing the right thing for you. They're doing the right thing for those who pay them, because that's a business. They're a business. Their job is to do the right thing by whom pays them. I understand. I'm saying you own the contract. You are the one signing something. You're the one agreeing to something. So you own the contract. It's a contract. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way agreement. If you just bow down to what they require you to do, that's not a contract. That's a mandate. You have a boss. If you're saying you are your own business, then it shouldn't be that way. So I can only speculate that these people don't want to be bosses. They want to be marks, which is why I made the statement about Faltron, etc., because they're not pushing back on what they know are unscrupulous practices to say, I am not going to just lie to the people that listen to me. I'm going to tell them the truth and you can continue paying me. Understand, though, I will say what I please. You are paying for exposure, not for support. I want some of them to do that. I hear very slim few do that. Very slim few do that. And that's disappointing. So your call to action is simple. If you like Shillers, continue to like Shillers. If you want to gamble and roll the dice because Shillers presented you a new project, by all means do so. If you feel that Shillers are the better presentation for you than level-headed coverage, that's fine. If you don't want the 50-50, that's fine. If you don't care about the negative, that's fine. If you don't care about being blocked from Telescan, that's fine. It's up to you what you do with your cash. I will never support or advocate a situation where certain people are lying to the people that listen to them because they have a platform that I feel personally they should be using for good, not for evil. I'm not going to change my stance on this because we have too much damage to the business that's happened over the past, let's say, 4 years that doesn't seem to be getting any better. Some of them have gone to a news-based platform, but they're still following whenever somebody approaches them to shill a project. And the things that are asking them to shill, I see no qualities in any of them. In fact, I see significant ripoffs happening on the daily that I don't like to see. And I think we should be better than that. I think cryptocurrency should be better than that. If we get Gary Gensler out of the office, maybe we can get some smart regulations in place that help us lock the stuff down. But in the meantime and in between time, I think it's incumbent upon everybody here listening to me, us that are platform presenters of any kind, podcast, YouTube, whatever. I think it's incumbent on all of us to do better and make sure that we're not delivering faulty messages that are entrapping people that are otherwise good people. So most of you are good people. I say most of you. With the Hachi situation, I'm trying to help people. I understand there's gamblers and I'm navigating a casino, but I'm trying to help people that don't want to get ripped off because I've been there. I understand it. It's easy to recognize it. And I use my platform to try to help that. I don't ask anything in return. It doesn't give my credit, but I don't ask any money in return. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to join my exclusive. I saw another article, which I loved. And it's a little image and it's a great image. So it talks about the fact that there's a token, right? And it's peaking, it's going green, and there's some Shiller and they say, yeah, this is going up a deep. And then the catch, and you know this one, right? They're like, you join my exclusive paid Patreon channel for more of these signals or whatever. And then what do? You FOMO on the green and then it dumps and then you get laughed at because it's the cycle. That's what Shillers do. Is entice more in, entice more in, entice more in. But by the time you hear about it from the Shillers, it's already hit near or at all-time high almost every time. Or if it is going to climb, it's not going to sustain. Or if it's climbing, it's about to get crapped or rugged or something else is going to happen. You can bank on one hand, guaranteed. This is how they work. Again, they're not trying to maliciously take money from you. They're just following orders because they're marks. They have a boss. Their boss is telling them, I need you to shill my product. They don't have the balls clearly to push back and say, I am not going to lie to my people. So tell me what it is. If the devs have 50% of the supply, I want to know about it. And I'll tell my people the devs hold 50% of the supply. That is a red flag. If the devs have no intention to renounce the contract, I want to know about it. I'll tell the people. That's what you need to do. And that's what I've seen a failure in the business of multiple people that don't call out the devs for their shady behaviors, which is what enables things like a Satama to happen in the first place, which is what enabled SafeMoon. So you now have the breakdown from my perspective of the Shillers and the mentality of Shillers. And then you have to take that information and make your own decision about what you do about it. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your cash. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your business. It's up to you. I'll just level set. I don't intentionally make money off of cryptocurrency. The trading I do is really out of curiosity. I'm intrigued by it. I'm fascinated by it. And I learn from it and absorb that knowledge so I can impart it to you. But I have my own stuff. I have my own business. The money I make off the side enabled me to buy a house. I'm not worried about it. Bills are going to be paid at the end of the year. I'm not worried about it. I'm doing home improvements. I'm not worried about it. Sometimes I forget to look at crypto. That's how it is, because that's how I think it should be. Your regular routine life, your job, should, I think, be first on the list. Make the money that you're supposed to make the way that we all were trained to make it, and then use that money and parlay it into cryptocurrency in a smart way so that you're not getting taken for a ride by these shysters. Instead, because of desperation, and I understand, we just saw Donald Trump working at McDonald's, so I understand some people are working at the McD's and they're not making a lot of money, and they think crypto is going to be life-changing because they hear the stories. They hear the Shillers telling them and showing them Lambos and all this garbage. I'm here to tell you, the money that they made is coming from all the projects that are hiring them. It's not from crypto trades. The vast majority of them did not make their wealth on crypto trades. They made it on their Patreon channels, their OnlyFans, whatever the fuck, their business deals with these crypto projects, because they're marks. And then they sell and pitch that to you. They can hire paid models. They can rent fancy cars and do all that to convince you that this is what it's supposed to be, when it's really not. In my opinion, I think you can do better. I think you could do better in a regular job, that you toss some extra money from the regular job into cryptocurrency, and at some point, similar to a lottery ticket, you might strike it big. I think it's safer. Yes, it's less risky. I'm not risk averse, but I'm smart about it personally. You might be just complete all about the gambler, rolling the dice, and I will celebrate you if you strike it. I'm saying I would not listen to a Shiller telling me what to get into to make my decision. You might say, well, how do I know about the projects? You have to do your own due diligence. You have to do your own research. You have to go out to the sites yourself and look for the projects and look around and find what seems to catch your eye. Don't rely on somebody else telling you what to do. Would you rely on somebody else telling you what school your kid should go to? Maybe, but that's school. You're getting benefit from it. Crypto, you don't get no benefit from that Shiller telling you to get into the project, because by the time you get into the project, they're likely sitting on a big bag ready to dump on you. All of this that I just described is my personal opinion. You are free to disregard it. I am simply saying the symphony, when they sing to you, the Shillers will tell you everything you want to hear, because that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're paid to do by their bosses. They're paid to tell you what you want to hear, to get you into the project, not for your best interest, for the project's best interest. They may not be malicious people. They're just doing a job because they have a boss. I ask you, in closing, which do you respect more? Do you respect somebody who is a boss, who calls the shots, or do you respect somebody who has a boss, who has to lie to you in order to make ends meet? Think about it. Just think about it. From a respect perspective, respect, right? Do you respect a boss, or do you respect a servant? Who do you think you're going to get the best answer from? You might get the truth from the boss if it's the right kind of boss. The servant's going to tell you what you want to hear, because they're a servant. They're answering to somebody else. That somebody else is mistreating them. So they have to feed their kids. They got to do what they got to do, which means hustle, which means lie, cheat, steal. The boss is already wealthy. They don't have to lie about nothing. I made this, okay? I earned this. This is mine. And if you want to be like this, that's what you need to do. Choose for yourself. If you want to listen to the servants, you want to listen to the hired help, by all means. I much respect the bosses, and I listen to the bosses. There are no bosses on YouTube. None. Ben Armstrong's not a boss. You might think he is. He's not. He was. He's not now. Vast majority of YouTubers out there are not bosses. The number of followers does not indicate a boss. Has nothing to do with it. Boss is, are you getting sustained money from something that is self-aware, that you did yourself, nobody helped you get it, you put the work in to do it on your own, and it wasn't just dumbass luck. That's a boss. Are you able to speak intelligibly about how you got to your level where it makes sense to somebody else, even if they can't do it, they at least understand it? That's a boss. Are you somebody that doesn't need to floss a Lambo in your face in order to get across that you are generating wealth? That's a boss. And most importantly, do you use information as your source of wealth? That's a boss. I think somebody like Cat Williams, when he said, no, I'm the wealthiest person in the world, people might have thought he was thinking about money. He wasn't thinking about money. What he said was, anything I want, I can get it. And I've got everything I would want right now, so there's nothing else I would want. Yes, I'm the wealthiest person in what he's talking about. He's talking about there's nothing else he would want. And if it was, he could have it. I mean, it's that simple. That may not be a money issue. You might think it is, it may not, because he said he wanted to be best friends with the deity of his choice. That's what he feels. That you might feel different, and that's why I'm saying you can choose to listen to the servant or you can choose to listen to the boss. You can listen to both. It's fine and make your own choice. That's what I'd rather you do. But if you were going to choose one, which would you choose? The person who's slaving away, following orders like a good little kid, or the person who's calling the shots? Which would you aspire to be? Which would you think you could reach? Do you just reach for the low level because that's all you can do right now? Or do you shoot for the stars because that's where the real wealth's coming from?